Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Team Comp Tuesday. Actually on Tuesday this week, and hopefully for the foreseeable future, if I don't have any other conflicts. But anyway, this week we are be taking a look at the Childe taser team. This is kind of the second main team Childe is used in. I'm not gonna lie, originally this week was supposed to be a Childe Dendro team because he's coming back out soon, so I want to do some Childe teams over the next couple of weeks, maybe next 2 weeks, or this week and next week, for fun. But I forgot I don't have Nahida completely finished leveled on my alt account, which is the only account that has Childe. So we're going to be instead doing the good old-fashioned Childe taser team, which is a team consisting of Childe and mainly other 4-stars, so it's very, very approachable. It's quite a lot of fun. It's not as good as International Team, obviously, but it's a fun team, and it's definitely a very satisfying team. And if you want that feel of like Childe, people always used to call this the Delusion team because it's, with the beta ult on Childe, it feels like he's using Electro too. You kind of get that feeling like you're using his Delusion too. I don't know. It's just a fun team. It's been around for a while. It is pretty competitive. So yeah, let's jump into it.
Are you here to play with me? Let me amuse
The wrong test subject.
Just really quick before we get on to the character builds, I just want to note that I am again on my alt account, so if you notice damages are a little bit lower, or if compared to some of my other showcases, it's in part because this account doesn't have constellations as good artifact quality, but this is a very achievable power level, and the team still performs quite well despite the fact that I don't think it's as good as his other options. It's still a lot of fun, but as you noticed from the last clip, you can struggle sometimes if you don't have a grouper, because this team doesn't want to run a grouper with enemies that are all spread out. But it's perfectly fine, and especially in 2 targets, it's quite easy to constantly cleave down stuff. Alright, now on to character builds. Childe, weapon, Rust is good. Inazuma Craftable is good if you're free to play. Besides that, any crit rate or damage bow will be completely fine on him. Rust is kind of his signature bow. This passive sounds a lot better for him than it actually is, since a lot of your damage comes from Riptide, charge attacks, ultimate, that kind of stuff, but it's still a perfectly usable stat stick, and it's perfectly fine on him. Artifacts, ideally you want 4-piece Heart of Depths, but if you have much better substats on like a 2-piece attack and a 2-piece Heart of Depths, go for it. Do not be bogged down by trying to get a insane 4-piece Heart of Depths, because like I said, the 4-piece Heart of Depths effect that gives more normal and charge attack damage is good, but there is a non-insignificant part of your damage comes from burst and from your Riptide effect. But for Circlet, you want crit rate or crit damage, hydro damage on Goblet, and then an attack Sands. For talents, you really only need to level up skill and burst, because his skill has the multipliers for his melee stance. If you're going to do some charge attacks, you might as well level up his normal attack a little bit, but these are the main 2 that you need to worry about. Now we're actually going to skip ahead a little bit because I want to do the 2 electro characters together, and we're going to talk just briefly about the force slot in the team. Personally, I use Bennett. Bennett tends to have the best results in my opinion. You could use an Anemo unit here, Kazuha, Sucrose, or even somebody like Jean for VV and healing would be completely fine, but Bennett is where I tend to lean. Weapons, any energy recharge sword or any high attack sword is good. My personal recommendation is, if you have it, the Sumeru Craftable, if you don't have a 5-star sword for him to use, is very good. I personally do not have it on this account, but I will be getting it and 90ing it as soon as I can, or as soon as I find the time to. If not, any sort of ER sword works completely fine, and barring that, something like Prototype Rancor for a stat stick. But again, I highly recommend that Sumer craftable. Artifacts, 4-piece noblesse, and then you have the personal opinion of whether to build him for damage or for healing. The only constant I would say is energy recharge on the sands. And then I have mine on this account on HP for more healing, but I would like to swap this out for a damage set. The problem is I just don't have a second crit rate noblesse, and currently my Jingcho uses it because I'm a little starved for artifacts on this account. But I personally would recommend going for the DPS setup instead, so I would personally grab off Pyro Damage Goblet and a Crit Rate Circlet. And for talents, Ultimate really the only one that matters, but you can level up E because you sometimes use it in teams, but your burst is the main skill that matters. That's your fat attack buff. And you want to make sure you're casting stuff like your Beidou ultimate instead of the Bennett burst, so you get the buff. And ideally, you want to drop the Bennett burst before first, so you can vaporize with Childe's ult before you swap to Beidou. Alrighty, next up we're going to be talking about the electro units in the team, starting with Beidou. Weapons, any sort of damage-based sword is fine. Luxury Sea Lord if you have it. Something like Prototype Archaic or Blackcliff if you're free to play. Rain Slasher might actually be okay in this team. The EM isn't very good though, so I personally wouldn't use it. The Akokumaru is fine. Serpent Spine is great if you have it. Just any kind of like DPS sword for stat stick. Artifacts, Emblem of Severed Fates. Now, if your substats are insane, you can get away with an attack sands, but I personally have energy recharge sands because my substats aren't that great. Electro damage on the goblet, and crit rate or crit damage on the circlet. You're aiming for somewhere near 180-ish energy recharge. If you get a little bit more, that's fine. Talents, E and Ultimate are the main two that you want to level up, as they are her damage. Ideally, if you can, you want to try to get some perfect counters to get the to get more damage off, if possible. But if not, you're mainly just gonna be using her E to fund her ultimate. Alright, and last up, but certainly not least, is Fischl, the character that has been single-handedly carrying Electro since release, and is basically the reason that most Electro teams work. Fischl is insane. Let's start with weapons. Stringless is my recommended option. It's easy to get, and it just synergizes really well with her, giving Oz more damage. If you don't have this and you want another option, something like Favonius to give Beidou a little bit of energy is alright. Or any other bow that has crit rate, crit dam, attack kind of stats would be perfectly fine. For heck, even an extra rust, if you just have one lying around for a stat stick, is probably fine. Artifacts. So this is a little bit up in the air, but generally just any combination of the 2-piece Electro set or any of the 2-piece attack sets. Alternatively, you could put her on a Tenacity of the Millilith. It'll be much less personal damage, but it will be more buffs for the team. You'll have to weigh for yourself at your level investment whether that's worth it for you. Personally, I just like to build my Fischls for damage, but that is an option if you have a very low invested Fischl. For stats, very standard. Crit rate, electro damage, and then attack because she doesn't need energy recharge for anything. Talents, E is the main one. That's Oz, and even the Oz that's summoned off your ultimate will take the damage modifier from your E. You can level up your burst as well, so if you need to drop it, you'll do a little bit extra damage, but Oz is the main thing to keep leveled. Alright, I'm just gonna do a quick rapid fire of some other characters you could use in the team and general setups. Any Anemo character, Kazuha or Sucrose, could be used in this team. Build them full EM, give them VV, they're good to go. Jean with a standard like attack, crit, and emo damage with VV as well could be perfectly fine. Possibly something I haven't played around with an absolute ton is the idea of running a Raiden instead of Beto for more single target fights, since her E is going to end up being better since Beto's thing can't arc in single target. But personally, I just like to keep using Beto. Other option is you could run the Jingcho instead of Bennett for a little bit higher single target damage and some minor healing, but personally I prefer just to stick with Benny Boy as that 4th slot. Alright. It's time to do a demonstration rotation. Now this is single target, so Beto isn't going to be absolutely insane here, but we're going to use her anyway just because it's part of the team. So I like to lead with Bennett ult, and then I like to use Childe to vaporize it before getting up my electro character stuff on Beto E, and then swapping to Childe. Now for your attack string, you generally want to do, like, if you're not using a Rust, I highly recommend doing 3 normals to 1 charge attack. And if you do have Rust, you want to do 5 normals generally to 1 charge attack. Or you can just do N3Cs because you're lazy like I am. But not too bad, as you can see. Generally, very simple taser team idea, because it's basically the shell of a taser team, is keeping up Oz, keeping up Beto ult, having Bennett ult as much as possible, and then just trying to play around Childe's cooldown. The main thing that you need to get used to is not staying on Childe too long. Generally like 9 to 13 seconds, somewhere in that range is where you want to be. So somewhere like 3 or 4 attack strings. You don't want to be sitting on him forever, or else you'll run into cooldown problems. Alright, I want to thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you give this team a try. It's a lot of fun. It's honestly, like I've been saying, it's not necessarily the most competitive team, but it's definitely not bad. Definitely in the, like, on the scale of completely for fun Chi-Chi plunging pyro attack damage to Raiden National International, it's probably closer to the meta half that it is to the weak half. Definitely a lot of fun. Kind of thematic to Childe, you know, getting to use Electro and Hydro, you know, kind of getting to play with his Delusion, quote unquote. Next week we will be doing a Childe Dendro team. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the other teams we have coming up. We have a Kaya team coming up at some point, because my alt account is actually insanely lucky and actually unironically has a C6 Kaya. So I want to use him for something. I'm building him up. Probably going to also have a Hazo at some point as team at some point. So that's a character I haven't really used, and I'd like to build and mess around with him. As well as, you know, some new characters, some more Gene teams, because I'm theory crafting some spicy Gene teams in the background. And yeah, I hope you are looking forward to any of those. Also, obviously, some new characters that come out. I will not be doing Yemiko team, as I don't have her on either of my accounts. Sorry. But you can basically slot her into most Electro teams that you see. Someone like Beto or Official, you can kind of just check her in. It should be fine. But I wish you luck if you're wishing. Remember to pick up Nikita. She's still out if you even slightly want her, because she is insane and a lot of fun, and you'll be seeing more of her again next week. So I want to thank you, and have a great day.